Welcome, welcome, welcome to New Normals. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. And today we hope to intentionally redesign new normals.
Leveraging humor and human sciences.
And today's topic is about the most intriguing word in the world, which is failure.
I think it's time to talk about failure.
What do you think about failure? So what if somebody would ask you what failure means to you? What would you say?
Failure means to me lots of good things, but I don't think everybody feels the same way as me. So for now, I'm guessing that failure feels really bad to most people, and we tend to equate failure to being off track, and we aim very ambitiously.
Right.
We don't plan for failure.
Right. And especially recently, as the new year arrived to everybody's life, so people became really ambitious. Okay, the last 5 years I failed, but this year is going to be different. And so they kind of go into the same way, with the same mindset, with the same expectation. And yeah, unfortunately, many people hit the spot of failure sooner or later, especially if we think about New Year's resolutions.
Right. So what could be a new normal?
I think, first of all, if we really, again, remind everybody that if they have experience of failing with their New Year's resolutions or failing with their desired changes, and usually what accompanies failure is shame, guilt, and other unpleasant feelings, which are not very good and healthy for the psychology, for the mental health, and also for physiology and so forth. So therefore, yes, let's look what could be the alternative, right? We want people to feel better. So if the currently failure feels bad, what would be the opposite of that?
How about failure feels good? Can it be?
Exactement. So that's the opposite of bad. Good. So let's put it very, very plainly. And now the people wonder how that's possible. How to think about.
Yeah. And does it make even any sense that failure should feel good? I think people get nervous when you say, well, just aim at having more failure. It almost sounds like somebody is giving up on life or is not looking forward to work harder and achieve more. And it has a bad connotation to say that let's aim for having some failure in life. It's just weird.
Yeah, maybe we could suggest people not always to use the word failure because it's one of the strongest on the spectrum. There could be difficulties, challenges, other similar words, or at least not that far on the dark end of the spectrum of the failure. So let me just give you this as an example. I'm using this Rubik's Cube, and then people, when they take the Rubik's Cube and they decide, okay, this year I'm going to solve it. But in case if they haven't prepared themselves and haven't understood how it works, so they really put themselves onto the track of the failure. Because I would say on average, people without any guidelines or instructions, I think that would be a really super mind if the person would be able to solve the cube without any, let's say, help with the guidelines or instructions. So therefore, maybe if people think about if their resolution is like this without proper preparation, of course they set up for the real failure. But I'm sure there are other ways how people would be helping themselves to reposition their ambitions and desires in a way that failure becomes part of the possibility.
Right. So what you are saying here is that let's have a very playful mindset. like how we love to fail in games. We see the game's failure as interesting challenges. And in fact, if games is not challenging, if you don't fail in game, we actually don't find it interesting and fun to play. And we don't feel proud when we overcome those manageable challenges in the game, and we don't discover the how to deal with the rules and how to succeed in those milestones in the games. So it reminds me of Edison's experiment with a light bulb. And when a reporter asked him, like, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? Obviously, he tried 1,000 times and he failed 1,000 times before that was invented. And he said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps.
Here we go. That's a mindset. That's a mindset how you go, and you include possible failures as part of your steps, as part of your plan. And then it's not that you are going off track because the failures are on track. That means if you prepare yourself that solving a Rubik's Cube will not be a magical moment when you start doing it in 2 minutes. But if you say, well, it's going to be an interesting journey, and there will be times and days when it will take me half an hour or maybe 2 hours to make the cube solved. But then you have it already. You don't say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do it, and in February, it's going to take me 2 minutes. No. Take it easy. Plan the January for the 2 hours, maybe with the instructions and the help of others and some YouTube videos that are helping you. And then gradually, and that means you really are honest with yourself. And instead of like over-promising to yourself and others and really putting the over-ambitious goals, you be realistic and say, well, I love this journey, and this journey will be fun. And part of the fun will be some of the challenges and failures that are going to be there, which will be steps into how I get in the direction where I want to get.
Right. So great success is built on trial and error, failure, frustrations, and even catastrophe. But I would say, let's even avoid the word success. Discovery in life. So even if it doesn't lead to that final light bulb being invented, I would say Edison's journey in looking for that light bulb, these 1,000 steps, and even if it doesn't lead to that final step of achieving something, in this process, if you discover the fact why these 1,000 attempts don't work, they're still discoveries. So any meaningful, intentional this effort towards something you're curious about, the process itself can be already very enjoyable, and there is no need to be rewarded by success or successful outcomes, but the mere process is rewarding by itself. In that scenario, I don't think we need restart effect anymore. So, Agnes, shall we share with people a little bit about the science behind of why we actually end up, making New Year resolution every year, and even we fail so often?
Right. And yes, I know you have scientific research done. So yes, please just tell what the science says about this phenomenon.
Yes. So Katie Milkman from UPenn published with her co-authors published a study on management science, and found that there's this fresh starts effect not only on New Year's Day, but also specific event days like a birthday, anniversary, beginning of a school semester, which enable people to be more effective in setting and achieving their goals, and And the effect merely talks about the energy and determination we feel when we're able to wipe the slate clean. So the essence here is that we feel bad about failure, and when our old self has some sting of failure, we feel the need of cleanse it off, and we use this start of something as a way to say, okay, now this is my new self. I don't want to do anything with my old self, and with my new self, I have a chance to not fail, to be perfect, which is again unrealistic. First of all, and secondly, if we actually plan for failure, if failure means on track, there is no need to restart, no need to have a fresh start, because every day is still perfect, and we can simply, or if you want, every day can be your New Year day to set a new resolution.
Exactly. Then we realize that all of the previously thought magical moments, New Year's, what else? Anniversaries, birthdays, other kind of memorable good days, suddenly had become the time when we kind of wash ourselves clean in so many ways and say, okay, from this day, okay. But then we know, and science has been showing it over and over again, we are a human beings that have continuum. And our continuum encompasses the history, our experiences, and those experiences have various kinds: successes, failures, some other emotions attached. But again, we are the decisive mechanism to decide how do we want to go about it. And if we just reframe, and again, we know that neuroplasticity allows us to do that. We reframe failure not as being something to avoid or something to be feeling bad about, but just reposition and put the same word in a different category, which means it's my learning experience, and that's my step towards my success. And then it gets more into the natural state of how we evolve.
Yeah. This is so crucial for discovering, because if we're so afraid of failure, we're not going to try. Too audacious,
Yes, and maybe just to give another kind of example of how people, I think I've tried many times, and people, if you, the listeners, if you have tried to use like a regular pen and to write something on the board, which means the pen goes this way, and what the pen does, the pen stops writing, right? So, and therefore, there are most likely people who invented this. Because this pen can write in any direction and also on the space stations, because it has a new engineering to attach to the regular pen. So it has the gas that is compressed, and that it's whatever is the outside circumstances, it keeps on writing. And that's my message to everyone. You are the person who keeps on evolving regardless of the outside circumstances. And failure as a name is just one of the circumstances that people deliberately attach to themselves. So please leave it to the old normal. And the new normal is failure is on your continuum of evolution as a necessary step. And this is how you grow.
Yeah. And there, in that example, you literally have to have the failure of this upside down for this new invention. So every failure is an opportunity to discover one, potential solutions to fix it, and the other is how it doesn't always work, which again, discovery is great. And I think the most innovative people probably are the ones who are most risk-taking, in the sense of not like not being prudent enough, but daring to try things that potentially that has uncertainty of in terms of the outcome. I remember there was even one very popular ritual to kind of cultivate your own sense of trying enough, and not have the fear of failure blocking you, to at least have to ask people, strangers on the street, a favor until you get a no. So every day, trying to get a rejection to practice accepting rejection, failure, so that you are familiar with it, so that you don't miss out on all those wonderful opportunities of interacting with strangers when you do get a yes, right? So this fear of like one chance in 1,000, like, when I remember, I intentionally try to strike a conversation with strangers in the airport while I travel, and no matter how little I experience rejection, I would say almost zero in history. Every time when I'm attempting to strike a conversation, I still feel, afraid. I still feel the fear of rejection. So which means that we're so hardwired to fear failure. It's not gonna come naturally to your automatic system. But that is okay, being aware that sensations of negativity, it's gonna take a long time for you to be overridden by the positive sense of, overcoming that sort of nervous fear. But giving it a try, and be as playful as you can.
Exactly. And it's almost the same way as we are building up our immune system, right? The more we are exposed to certain thing, the more immune system recognizes what it is, and then the more relaxed the whole your body ecosystem, including your body and mind, is receiving similar occasions. So your example about the airport, it's a very great one. So an airport is kind of still this place where people are more open, because that's the kind of mix of everybody traveling in different places. But then if the same could be repeated somewhere else on a street, regular street, it would be the failure rate or your experience rate for developing your immune system will be much more higher. So you would have more of these experiences. So yes, developing your immune system.
Your failure immune system.
Yes.
The other point, Agnes, I think, given that this is a social norm of also criticizing on other people's failure, the new norm of rewarding failure and rewarding the efforts of trying something audacious in companies, actually done by a few very innovative organizations, and they really try to encourage, right, their employee to try enough. Otherwise, everybody just playing it safe, innovation won't happen. But I think in daily life, we're seeing this even more resistance, right? Parents would, if the kids would fail in school or any kind of failure, all you get from other people is that, you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, probably you have shirked, probably you have, it's your fault that you fail. Instead of taking into account, chances, instead of taking into account that the harder the more audacious you are, the more likely you might be failing, right? So there's all these social punishment psychologically for failure, which I think also contributed to this current paradigm of not making use of failure as an opportunity to grow. So there's this concept of growth mindset from scientific findings that it shows that if we see failure as a learning opportunity, kids can perform much better at school. The difference between a high performer kid and a not is that they will always persist after, even when they fail, or even incidences of failure lead them to try even harder. And most of us, when we really kind of don't manage to get anywhere, is that we give up way too early, right? So that's maybe some encouragement of us trying to give other people support for failing. And so when we see each other, we say, wish you a lot of success this year. I think we should change it to wish you interesting failures this year.
Or wishing you really evolutionary failures. Failures.
You evolve.
Really,
yeah.
yes.
So good. So we are about time to say goodbye here.
Yeah, and the last thing from me, I could tell you to finish up. So I got it in my hands when I was a small boy, age of 7, 8. And I was failing constantly. Every single attempt was a failure for many, many years. Then I dropped the idea. And then for the decades, I kind of stayed away. And whenever I saw it, I was always curious, but I was still trying not to take it because I knew all of the history of my thousands of failures. But I was missing one piece, which is there is the instruction, there is an algorithm, which I now learned. And again, even if I knew the algorithm, it took me an effort and again, a few senses that were similar to failure, which means I could do it faster. And that was, again, my inner voice saying, and I kind of punishing myself that I could do it faster. But then I learned through getting it right and getting it down to 2 minutes. And the journey is very exciting. And at the same time, you learn how your immune system is very responsive and you can build it any way you want.
So here I have a failure moment of trying to sit straight up, but the screen is shaking. And next time I know that I should just sit straight up from the beginning. I also have a new ambition this week, as it dawns to me that I should have more quiet moments. So I want to find 10 to 15 minutes every day, just to be quiet. Maybe not necessarily meditate. If I end up meditating, that's great. But the simple rule is that being silent, and I want to plan for failure in this journey. So of course, the idea is, to get a daily habit, but I want to make sure that I have 2 days within the next week that I at least fail to remember or fail to do it. I might remember to, this is my 10, 15 minutes, and I'm just going to try not do it for 2, 3 days. And if I end up failing to fail enough, I'll try to be just as happy with it.
Okay, and I will learn about your evolutionary journey next week.
Sounds good.
All
I'll
right.
let you know then. Bye for now. See you next week.
All right. Yes, see you next week.